Nibingelele babukeli be Eswatini TV, libito lami ngimbali ngokaSimelane, and this is Mind Over Matter, a platform bukele lapho khona sivulele mina nawe ukuthi sisitane bukeli, especially kulamalanga lesihlangabetana nawo, whereby we can't talk about what we face, we can't even talk about what we went through as kids. I hope this platform itakusita nawe lapha ekhaya as we walk through together. I am not doing this alone, nanamuhla I'm doing it with our clinical psychologist ngikhuluma ngaye Thabile wakamnisi lotosita ukufika kule ndzaba yanamuhla, especially today we are touching a very touchy subject, sikhuluma ngayo suicide and self-harm. Once again, welcome. You're part of the furniture, so now I can't even say welcome.
Thank you, Bali.
But
Thank you again
once
for
again.
inviting me back.
Yeah, you look beautiful.
Thank
It's also
you.
with this pretty smile, we're here to talk about deep and heavy things.
Well, it's part of life.
Yeah,
There's no
man.
avoiding it.
Yeah, true. Tabilo, today we're talking about a serious issue. We're talking about suicide. I'm saying it's a serious issue because nasibuga statistics inombolo atijabulisa kakhulu. Nasibuga nje bobabe labathi baba successful in terms of doing that. Iyanyuka kakhulu, iyasabeka, but bomake incane. Kuqala nje singakafiki nekufika ukuthi kwendwa yini lokho. What's the difference between self-harm and suicide?
Okay. Okay, ngizama ukubeka ngalamathembu bese ngiyakuhlahlela, you know, because for example, self-harm, we call it non-suicidal self-injury. So basically leyo muntu utilimata ngemabomu but without the intent yokubulala, uyakubona. They just want to hurt themselves for various reasons. And then when it comes to suicide, lapo it's when someone vele injures themselves with the intention of
yeah, true. So now showing about self-harm, ufika njani esigabeni sokuthi kusuke seyikuphile nkinga la ngiva khona ukuthi let me just do this and move on after that. Yes, because most of them you see them cutting themselves because there are different types of self-harm, right?
Yes, there are different types. Mbali kunabo cutting, ukhanza ukuthi umfana mhlambe utawutisika be it nge-razor noma ngemukhwa. They cut in different areas, on the wrists, on the stomach, on their thighs. Kunabo burning, ukhanza ukuthi utawusebenzisa lighter noma umechiso atishise, and isikhathi lesiningi ukhanza ukuthi abatilimati enzaweni that is very exposed letawubalula ukuthi ibonakale. They try to hide it.
Yeah.
Yes, kunabo banging themselves, khanza ukuthi ushaya ebonzeni, ushaya inhloko, or punching walls and things like that to injure themselves. Kunale misconception yeke ukuthi mhlambe umuntu nangabe mhlambe sekatilimata it's because vele ufuna ukutibulala.
Yes.
Kumcoka lokho differentiate ukuthi umuntu can self harm bali but kusuke kude necessarily the intention yekutilimata. The hurting or the harming yourselves, it plays a lot of roles. Bangfu nje lengingahlala nabo nawo babuta ukuthi what is the reason, what purpose does lokutisika help? I was feeling very empty, or I was very numb. I couldn't feel any feeling. So lokutisika noma kutimata made me sort of feel something. I just wanted to feel something to make sure I'm still alive, I'm still a human being.
Yeah.
Ukhona lona lotatimata because the emotions are too intense, they are too overwhelming. In the case of adolescents and teenagers, base lama resources ukuthi ema emotions ami, how do I regulate them, how do I manage them? So ukhanza ukuthi lo munye uthi yathi nangitisikile noma nangtishisile, at least when the pain is physical ngiyakhona kuyi manage than nay emotional, and I feel like I don't know what to do about it. Yes, then kukhona labo ke lokhanza ukuthi uva ngathi because everyone says I'm bad or I've done something bad out of guilt or whatsoever, atilimate as a form of self-punishment. So it's very difficult sometimes umuntu longa phandle nakayiva lento ukuthi avele abe nekuthi unani lona, what is wrong? But when you look at the reasoning behind, it sort of makes sense. Ikakhulu le cutting nje, for some people it's gotten to a point where it's addictive. And why is that? Umtimba wethu, the human body naturally is made in such a way ukuthi if ngiba injured in one way or the other, on the skin, on my bone, in the moment uyayiva mhlambe nangabashaya imvu athi kusashisa angibuva lo buhlungu.
Yeah, true.
Naturally the brain releases chemicals endorphins that are meant to numb the pain uyakubona. So lo munye especially lona lo tela ama resources ukuthi how do I deal with the emotional pain ugcina sekaphike kusebenzisa this mode of ukuthi yathi I get a sense of momentary relief lana nangitilimete in those moments.
But njengoba usho ukuthi batilimata enzaweni la engabonakali khona, why is it? Because they are crying for help, but at the same time they don't want you to know that they are facing whatever that they are facing.
I think now in the previous episode Mbali we touched on things like bo stigma and things like that. It's no one reason. But lo muntu abanalo ukuthi if I talk about this, if I cry out for help, angathi bamfu batangibuka njani. Noma nangibuka lesimo la khaya, it's not a safe enough environment ukuthi we can have a conversation ukuthi ngi-stressed. But nje nawubuka they have the tendency to say ustresswa yini wena unenkinga wena uncane kangaka ngiyakuthengela kudla you have shelter over your head ngiyakubhatalela school fees, what is stressing you out uyakubona. So leyo mfana uva ngathi you know what I can't even talk about these things. Nawubuka also ukuthi even in our vocabulary Mbali in this field of emotions and feelings kude nemagama athile sometimes to express wonke umuntu ngabe afika aba like what's wrong athi nje angitiva kahle ngiyabo I feel kude labo I feel sad and the nuanced emotions bo frustration yabona bonke nje banekuthi ngikhathatekile uyayibona lento le. So it's all of those things lokhanza ukuthi some people just opt to you know what asengititfolele my immediate sort of escape or tool letangisebenzela nyalo uyabona, then they resort to these unhealthy means of hurting themselves.
Tabile, that was self-harm, right?
Yes.
Now talking about suicide, when we are talking about teens, global adolescents, teens, like what's really the reason behind? Because sometimes when my results are after the results, then that happens. Like a lot of reasons. But as what are the main reasons that push the teens to go through that?
That's a wonderful question, Bali, because now between the ages of 15 to 24, suicide is one of the second or third leading causes of death in that stage. And why is it mainly young people? So things like number one, the fact that the brain is still developing, their body is still developing. As all these hormones that are moving up and down in their body, those things they intensify emotions. So those people they feel a lot more deeper. Number one. Number two, lengqondo isengakadevelop under 18 or 21. Lengqondo isengakafiki esigabeni kangaka kube certain things it can reason them out properly uyabona. So lo munye kuba it's a moment of this thing happened and usetele life experience le andlule etigamekweni letiningi letitamenda afile reassured ukuthi you know what tinfo letibhlungu tiyendeka but it hambe tenge kuye le rejection lengitfola manje esikolweni or the bullying it feels like it's forever and it's the end of my life uyabona. So those are the things lokhanza ukuthi vele they push them to the edge and again no one to talk to and things like that. So they are likely vele to yatikthini ngifuna something that will just end the pain. You would be surprised Mbali ukuthi as much as yes, when it comes to suicide, kunalama stages before umuvu actually afike to the attempt itself.
Tabile, that one is very important, especially the stages that you are talking about. But in front of you, let's just go for a quick one and then we'll come back and talk about the stages. Mugadi, you are still watching Mind Over Matter. Suicide and also self-harm. And the reasons behind it, I know you're going to learn a lot from today's episode, so make sure you don't go anyway. Let's take a quick one. Welcome back. You are still watching Mind Over Matter, a platform where we get to talk about real life issues, issues that we face on a daily basis. I am not doing this alone. I'm doing it with an amazing Tabi Demnisi, who is our psychologist for the day. Before we went for an ad break, stages. lama stages e-suicide so abona kanjani sibona kanjani ukuqala ukuthi okay Mbali akasekho right so kulesinye isigaba.
Okay, mangawa mention nje first of all kuqala lemfo as umcabango yayibona lemfo le ngokuthi this person is thinking about suicide and nakasese lapho ukhanza ukuthi kutabana letinshanshu tetinvo lekati khulumako that can sort of insinuate ukuthi hayibo lo muntu yabo imbuto nje ukuthi ngabe nangingafa ke you know bamfa ngasala bente njani ningathini nje uyabona already that is telling you ukuthi okay ingqondo yalo muntu useyidlalela lapho uyabona so that is the first stage. Then from ucabanga ngako the ideation one moves to now planning yayibona mvole.
Yes.
Umsoqala lapho so uyahlela lokho ukuthi okay what am I going to do, and it's one of the things we do nas assess nje umuvu ukuthi what is the risk kutakwena yini siyabuta lokho ukuthi okay nangabe uthi ufuna kufa unalo invele plan uyabona khanza ukuthi utakutshela ukuthi yebo babeliphoyisa ngiyathi ukuthi isibhamu sakhe sihlala kuphi ngiyathi ukuthi nithamba ngabo lesithafu bavama khamba baye emthandazweni ngibana ukuthi nje nase bahambile ngidasikhipha uyabona mfulo ukuthi leli plan seli concrete ukuthi utakwenda kuphi nini ngani uyakubona uyabuka nalokuthi do they even have access to the means uyakubona because lo munye ukhanza usebenzisa bomaphilisi ekhaya ngabe kuyalinywa usebenzisa you know all of those different chemicals so lapho uyananga lokho ukuthi okay lona waloku adlalela ngase chemicals ekulima yet they have no interest njani walokho aba curious ngokuthi bosibhamu sababena kanjani yabo what is it uyakubona but ke you also see sometimes umuntu ukhanza ukuthi uba ngathi nje they are putting their things in order ukuthi yabo so qala so timfo takhe so phana ngato mhlambe I want Mbali to remember me with this jewelry ndayiphambali ini ndayiniketa azibani bafuna uqala question lapha ukuthi okay why does it seem like this person is now wanda sakuvalelisa social media you know the posts that they speak some people khanza ukuthi ubhale timpo uyambona ukuthi ngathi there's a sense of hopelessness and worthlessness in this person kule tone lekathanza khuluma ngayo they are constantly posting timpo leti sort of negative yayibona lemfole then sesifika ku the stage of attempt yayibona lemfole
so sorry Thabile kukujuba lwimi before sifike the part of attempt bakhona labanye thola ukuthi bathi Mbali is a happy soul besihleka naye nyalo Mbali labo ubabona njani like what do you call those kind of people because khona lo hlala and she makes sure that everyone is happy everyone is laughing and share nyalo even sambama ukuthi oh ngabo 6 Mbali bese so when 1 2 3 labo ukhona njani mama because it's very difficult this person is always bubbly and always smiling.
Honestly it is very difficult Mbali njengoba usho uyabona and it's siyasithi kunanake memes la athi check on your helpful friends or the clowns in the group because ukhanza ukuthi labo this thing of being a happy soul and cracking jokes and making sure everyone is happy everyone is well it's because deep down kwayena they are going through stuff yayibona so I feel like kutaba likhuni lokubona lana naseka point mhlambe yabo planning but kwakho is the fact that you know ukuthi umngane wakho ongilehlobo lelo msonzelele kusukela nje ekuqaleni ungakaboni nasamasa msonzelele and be the friend that says mngani you're always making sure I'm okay mngani you're always being the one who's cracking jokes and making sure I'm fine wena ke yabo tihluphe ngokuthi nawe uyangena ekuthenini unjani what is going on in your life and hope ukuthi they open up but nje also there's usually then a shift in personality akusisonke isikhathi la ukhanza ukuthi khona yes the happy soul is 24/7 bubbly yaba khona here and there those small signs ukuthi hayi man namhlanje there's something off about Mbali.
She's not completely the person that we know.
Yes, but I feel like the important thing here is that it's very rare ukuthi umuntu angavuka namuhla I decide ukuthi I am going to take my life. Oftentimes they have walked through the stages. Angisho ukuthi are impossible impulsive suicide attempts akhona lawo impulsive especially nangabe kwendeka sigameko mhlambe that is very traumatic for the person avele ave ngathi you know what I cannot take this kube worse ke in instances where lo muntu also they will be using a substance because khanza kusobhemile noma sonathile lokho kumniketa sibinzi ukuthi angasacabanga nakakhulu ukuthi yabo what are the consequences khanza ukuthi soya attempt besinaye besihleka ekseni but nthambama uyayibona yes.
Yeah. So how do we help umuntu lombonako ukuthi so kanjalo besides the talking, besides the asking, how are you Mbali? Are you okay? Are you good? What else can we do? Especially because we are talking about teens here. Sometimes lo munye athi ngikhuluma namake ngidawukhuluma nemngane nami or sometimes social media utaba imphendvulo yami yako konke. Sena njani ukunciphisa le nombono?
Yeah, I always say, oftentimes for umuntu ukuthi azafike ku-suicidal ideation and then planning and then attempt, oftentimes ukhanza kokuthi this person was going through something, there was something stressful or already bese banabo depression and things like that. Sometimes
Yeah.
diagnosed, sometimes undiagnosed. So vele lona lo mati kokuthi, you know what, they struggle with anxiety, they struggle with depression. Ngibona bathi ngakusonzelelwa kakhulu.
Yeah.
But lona lo khanza kokuthi usengakabi diagnosed, usengakati, but uyabona lokho ukuthi something is off. The key thing is msonzelele, and I really like ukuthi insaya ngifake kakhulu kubatali ukuthi yathi la isala khona where you find that eventually mhlambe umphana so unabo self-esteem struggles and things like that. Ukhanza ukuthi le at the foundation mhlambe bekude enough of paying attention to the child.
Yeah.
Bekude enough of affirming and giving positive feedback to umphana. Uyakubona?
Yeah.
Harsh words like ufailile, uslima, vele ucabanga ukuthi udaba yini. Naka ezumntala ukuthi ilanguage yakho yendani kulo mphana.
Yeah,
Uyabona?
true.
Sometimes it's not so much your words even, it's your actions towards lo mphana. Lokuthi nangabe ngikushayela noma nangifuna usito lakho awungathi yini uyekelele icingo. Uyabona
Yeah,
mfowethu?
true.
Do not get irritable when I call your name. Uyabona? The biggest thing longayiniketa umuntu to tell them kokuthi you are worthy, you are important is your attention and your time.
True.
So iqala le phansi kubatali emakhaya ukuthi are they reinforcing to lo mfana kokuthi umqoka, you have something important to say, we are here to listen to you before aphume aye ku community esikoleni wese baqala bamtshela ukuthi ikhaya lakho likhulu wena unjani njani usiduda kakhulu netibuni letinjani. But
Yeah.
la khaya nakaphume kunale bafana kunale foundation yokuthi yathi I am loved.
Yeah.
I am important, I
I'm
am good looking, I am
beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Uyakubona? Aba mancane lamaphuba ekuthi lokho akutaba ne serious effect. Then nangabe vele se we are in the thick of it and things like that. You know what, ngiye ngithi have the conversations bali. Labanye abantu beva ngathi nangidambuta sometimes ngibe direct ukuthi have you considered, have been having thoughts of hurting yourself?
Yeah.
Have you been having thoughts of kuba ngathi ngisengimnikete idea? Actually no. Nangabe lemfo bese ivele seyisemconveni. Talking about it is not going to change anything. So
Yeah.
nana nathi we often nakafikile ngithi ama psychologists, we don't beat about the bush. Ngiyangibuta ukuthi have you been engaging in behavior of hurting yourself? Have you thought of suicide?
Yeah,
Uyakubona?
true.
Does the person have a history of suicide attempts? Because nangabe phambilini kuke kwendeka noma emndenini kukhona lokho wa-attempta, lokho kuyawakhulisa amathuba ukuthi lo muntu angakhanza kokuthi seka nga-attempta i-suicide. Uyakubona?
Yeah,
So
true.
more than anything, it's having the conversation. And now that ezumtali kokuthi I don't have all the answers. Angicela isikolo singibambise bo teacher labafundisa bo life orientation, bo career guide nabo what nasemangweni angikhulume namakhelwane longness, angihambe ngimikise angimfunela psychologist, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't rely on yourself to be the answer to everything ezontali.
Yeah.
Knock on different doors.
Tabile, what you're saying is very important. Not since inzabe badali ikakhulu because ushido kwi previous episode ukuthi nanathi siyadzinga usizo khona sikhona sithi abantwana bethu. Mbukeli, it's very important for us sibadali nathi to open up and get help so that we can help our kids and have a better generation. You are still watching your very important program. I'm talking about Mind Over Matter. Siyasitana Mbukeli hlelweni. Please make sure that you don't go anywhere because a lot is still coming just after this. Welcome back. You are still watching Mind Over Matter. I'm not doing this alone. I'm doing it with Tabile. Suicide and self-harm. Tabile, I think ngumntwana lokuthi sadi lokuthi labantwana njobe bakulesimo self-harm. Sibabona njani? You know, how do you tell ukuthi no? Because they're doing it in places where we can't see as parents, but now how do you tell ukuthi ngibona ngazuthi khona imvula engahambi kahle?
You are very right, Mbali Loguti. They are getting even more and more creative in terms of putting you know, because I think sometimes there's a lot of shame, stigma, let's say, attached to lenvole. I think based on my experience, langbone konanje, kakulula emikonwen, you know, the arms bavamile ukuthi sika kakhulu nekuthi shisa kakhulu khona.
Yes.
So ukhanza ukuthi sometimes ukuthi afihle lo muntu ukhanza ukuthi so uthanza kugcwalisa labo ma jewelry or these bands, sometimes ukhanza ukuthi yet kukhona le bakufihlako uyakubona imvo le.
Yes.
I know someone who used to had a lot of tattoos emtimbeni wakhe only to find ukuthi it's because bekati shisa a lot in certain places, but then nasekufihlela ama tattoos batali abanaki
can't
uyayibona
tell,
imvo le.
yeah.
Umfana kuyashisa, it's summer, it's the peak of the heat, but ugcoke timvo leti long sleeve, you know, fake emajezi and things like that uyakubona. Nika ukuthi ke njengoba ngisho ukuthi angeke uyikhe etulo lenfo itabalula kuyilandzelela nekubona lishintsho umfana khona ngabe bowunebudlelwane naye uyakubona. So if you have a good relationship with your child, especially if you're a mother and it's a girl child, uyakhona ukuthi at times mhlambe ungenile roomini nakagcoka uyakubona waqala bona, because sometimes the burning and the cutting sometimes is in the inner thighs areas where ukhanza ukuthi kude lo tawunaka uyakubona mfo le. But la kusita khona ke lapho sometimes ukhanza ukuthi mhlambe kutaba nemngane who has heard about this thing, who will notice that uyakubona. So sometimes fortunately or unfortunately isikhowe sakho as umntali would be their friend yabo, to say, how's my daughter doing, how's my son doing, you know, have you noticed anything, I'm concerned about them, have you noticed anything mhlambe in their body, in their demeanor that has shifted, I just want to make sure ukuthi I help them yayibona le. And we are in the digital era some of this information they get a lot from both social media, and because vele umfana usesephathe isandla semntali noma ngabe we want kangakanani to respect their autonomy and privacy, there is a level of control umntali that they need to have. So things like at times monitoring what are the sites they are going into, what are the search histories uyabona. Sometimes uyakhanza ukuthi from looking at bo search history and things like that ngiyabona ukuthi hayibo ngathi lo muso ulooka up bo self harm nabo suicidal information. So monitor vele liso lemntali alibele ngilelicophele. Ngiyathi ukuthi we are in an era where both parents yabo khanza ukuthi bayasebenza. Sometimes ukhanza ukuthi the close one to lo mfana kutaba helper, the close one to lo mfana kutaba ngogo kutaba auntie, khuluma nabo and ababe sandla sakho ababe liso lakho as well. Don't depend on ukuthi utatendela wena konke ezumntali. But yeah, it's exactly that, just being vigilant, asking questions. At times you had you seem to be down today, you had a rough day, what's going on? You know, so nakwendeka logo, how did you feel, and what steps did you take? Has it gotten to a point like wacabanga khona nekufa? Has it gotten to a point like wazama kulimata khona uyakubona?
But I think sometimes parents even fear to go to that extent because we're like nangambuta, what if atibula lembang? Because it's a very difficult one. That's where you guys now
exactly
involve
what I was
guys.
saying logo. Though you would be surprised, because some people feel like if I ask the question directly, saying him negative ideas, but it's really often not like that. But again, njengoba ngisho ukuthi ungatitshela ukuthi utaba netimpemvulo tonke ezomntali, you know, go hambe uyonconcotha kubube, hambe uyokhuluma nathishela, go and ask that healthcare professional that you can ask. Lokho umcoka ukuthi lo mfana athi lokho ukuthi lusito lukhona noma make no obabe ede impemvulo, but angamfunela other people that can best help them.
Talking about help and teens, Tabile, ingabe sikhuluma enough yini ngikhuluma nzaba setikolweni and also moving around different places in the country in terms of this part ye-self harm ekufundzisa nekwatisa labanye ukuthi umbona kanjani umuntu nokuthi ke singayivala kanjani lenzaba ukuthi noma ke inombolo ukuthi inganyuki. Are we having more conversations and are we having places where we can actually say, you know what, since you're at home not doing anything, just come here and keep busy with the other kids so that, you know, those kids can be busy?
Look, I've been seeing lately, although unfortunately when it comes to field mental health, we are still very much under-resourced. Now, bugama professional, in the professionals in proportion to the number of the population, bancane kakhulu. But bakhona laba who have started initiatives of, you know, having those what you call your psychosocial groups where they psycho-educate teens, especially nakuvala tikola ukhanza ukuthi abakhona ama-advertisements, or sometimes you go into the schools vele. I myself, with a colleague of mine, in the next coming term, will be going to one of the schools in the country to introduce this topic. Yati kunetimfo leti njengabo anxiety, kunetimfo leti njengabo bullying, nabo peer pressure and things like that. So let's just have those small groups where we talk about these things and we teach teach labampana the language about these things, how to notice themselves and other peers of theirs who might be struggling, how best to help them and direct them to where they can get help. So we still need to do more, but we are doing the best we can in this very much under-resourced country of
And you are
ours.
touching a very important part, the part of bullying. Which is very important. Vele Tabile ubona njani ukuthi umntwana wakho is being bullied Nkosi yami? So you can help, because they hide these things over. It started in primary probably and got built up to the stage this is also.
Look, okay, I do know it will be one of the topics that we will focus on, either me or Umlingani wami, who will be a lot of Vakashelo, who will speak specifically on the topic of bullying, peer pressure and things like that. So but in things whereby this child, there seems to be a sense of angst each time ufuna ahambe aye esikolweni, uyakubona. Lo munye ukhanza ukuthi akasafuni ukuvuka ekseni yet beka enjoy esikolweni, so uyakhala uyatitila, akafuni mhlambe kuhamba esikolweni ungakamnike R10 or ungakamnike imali. That is more than what they need in general. So also nasa develop certain emotional symptoms and behavioral symptoms langakajwayeleki kuye. Lapho kwakho as umntali is zoom in and ask what is going on. But these things are not easy to pick up nje ubukile lapha until you draw your child closely and umbute le mibuto. And draw close, it only comes perfect when you have built that time and the relationship with your child. Then you can ask the questions, then you can get the answers.
Yeah, we need to do that. We know because everyone is busy. Because everyone is tired. We'll see each other in the morning. In the morning, same thing happens. It's the routine. But we hope, Tabile, we're going to get to a point where everyone is okay and everyone is able and feel safe. This is what I'm facing and I need help, and I also want to help someone else.
We really hope so. Growing up when HIV,
exactly.
The mental health, I really believe it shouldn't be something that is left I go my psychologist, I go psychiatric. I love the fact that media houses like Eswatini TV is taking the initiative to say, let us talk about these things. Institutions, churches and companies and things like that. Yes,
I like the part of mental health in Thank you once again. Sibongile kakhulu ba nawe sifunze lokuningi ethembe ukuthi nembukele ekhaya uthokozele kakhulu lesiphathelo namhla ehlelweni ngethembe futhi ukuthi ufunze lokuningi kakhulu when it comes to suicide and self harm. Mbukele ndasiqiniseko sokuthi uba nathi phinze kuyo ihlelo lakho lihamba embili iMind Over Matter. From me Mbali Simlani, Umnguni Mpembe, Dlewzi Mchwane and the rest of the team, sizinisale kahle and God bless you.